Well, good afternoon. I am Kitt Letcher with Better Business Bureau serving Central Oklahoma. I am so excited to be joined by Donna Miller with Purse Power and Executive Resource Center, two different entities, but led by one individual. And Annette has been a part of Better Business Bureau for several years. And we're so excited to have you join us today and just talk about resources and things that people should be thinking about as they're looking at the HR component while navigating this new landscape, and one that we're all navigating together. So I think a lot of people have a lot of the same questions. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what your business is and what you're doing.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Kitt. I appreciate it. And I think the world of you guys. I love what you do over there at the Better Business Bureau.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm a former 30-year HR executive. I'm a corporate escapee. And I have spent, as I said, 30 years in human resources. 10 of those years was spent laying people off in very tumultuous industries.
Wow.
So I went from the computer industry with the dot-com bust to the telecom industry, where they were overhauling the whole culture and the way telecoms work, to the cable industry, and then oil and gas. Some of the larger projects I helped lead were to lay off 4,000 employees for a telecom company, and another project was consolidating 250 call centers down to less than 30 nationally for AT&T, and writing the HR playbook for doing that. So when I'm talking about some of these dynamics and some of the tools, they are field tested. Okay. So I came to Oklahoma as the VP of HR, and again, I worked in a variety of industries. The other thing is I have done executive coaching, leadership development, and team building, and I've been focused primarily on women in leadership and that conference, getting women on boards, and ultimately ended up creating Purse Power, where we're trying to help women use their massive purchasing power to drive change. So that's how I arrived where I am.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think so indicative of somebody like you, that we have so many different resources just kind of in our knowledge bank of things and experiences that we've been through. I love that you talked about all those different industries that you've touched and creating that playbook, because so often right now, for some of us, myself included, this feels very new and very different. And so when I'm looking for resources or trying to figure out how to navigate this, I'm trying to figure it out from a point of who has experience and who's actually done this. I don't necessarily want to try out new things. I want to try out tried and true things that are going to work.
Right.
So I'm curious right now, just as people are thinking about it, what are your recommendations as people are talking to their employees concerning the current landscape? Is there anything from, let's say, an HR standpoint that they should avoid discussing or even promising?
Okay, so I'm glad you've asked me that. First of all, I think that people don't understand that it's a really good idea to involve your employees in coming up with a solution. You and I were talking earlier that there's a knee-jerk reaction. People are laying people off.
Right.
And I personally believe in stepping back, taking a look at your strategic plan, doing either a SWOT analysis or a SOAR analysis, which gets you to focus on opportunities, and say, okay, given what's going on in the environment around us, what could we do differently? Are there new revenue streams that we could get? Could we eliminate, outsource, or automate some of our work? There's all kinds of things that you can do to tweak your business, what you're focused on, create revenue streams, decrease costs before jumping to laying people off and restructuring your organization. So I recommend that you be open with your employees, particularly in this time. Everybody knows we're all facing a really rough time right now. You're not surprising anyone, right? And being kind and transparent and as open as you can be, I think, and being authentic is the right answer in this time.
Yeah.
Just for reference, when you're going through major organizational change, in my experience, is if you are not transparent, people think you know more than you do. They're more worried than they need to be. And if you're really open with them, they know, well, if anything's going to come down, she's going to tell us. We'll know.
Right.
And they're the ones closest to the work. They know where the inefficiencies are. Your employees can actually help you figure out how to be a more efficient, lean, and mean business coming out the other side of this. The other thing is, can they work fewer hours? Can they work on projects that you haven't been able to focus on for a while? Can we get creative somehow? Can you partner with another business that does have a need for their skill set? Or could you even partner with a business that's an entirely different business right now that has a spike in their need?
Yeah.
Get creative about what you're doing before you jump to layoffs. Because from my perspective, you're breaking the faith with employees when you do that. And I get that you have to. I get that you have to sometimes. You really do. And especially if you're a small employer, you may not have any choices. But you just need to recognize that that is a very big decision, and it's a better idea to try to see if there's anything else you can do, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I love that you said that. And I think, one of the things that we obviously, transparency is huge within our business. I mean, it's one of our 8 standards of trust. And with everything that's going on, one of the things that we did at the very beginning of just kind of talking to our employees is I took our financials and I told them, here's our break even every month. And here's what I pay in employee salaries, and just lumped everybody together so that they could really see the impact of like us all staying together and what that looked like. And then I thought later, like, oh crap, should I have done that? Was that a good thing or a bad thing? But I think it really helped everybody realize, like, we're all in this together. And
Yes.
I value their opinion just as much as I do anybody like on our leadership team, because to your point, exactly, they have come up with some really great ideas on, new things that we could be doing, or, hey, I can spend a little bit of extra time on this and it helps us bring in additional revenue or additional businesses in this way. Like, is that something you would be interested in? I'm like, yes, if you guys can do it, that would be really fantastic. And I think opening up that brainstorm bubble is so important right now. Yeah, I love that you brought that up.
I agree. And the other thing is about it is, even if the decisions they hate the decisions.
Yeah.
If they get a choice of some kind, it helps. It just helps to give them some measure of control in this really rough situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious if, as we're talking through that, are there things that business owner or high level decision makers, is there a way for them to prep employees or start having those conversations if they feel like layoff is inevitable or they're going to have to reduce their workforce? What are the things that they really need to keep in mind, or not promise, or just what are some tips in that arena?
Okay, so one of the things that happens in my experience with change is people try to say that, okay, we're going to get through this. Here's the end date. Okay, sigh of relief. We're on to the next thing. In reality, it does not work like that. And change is like if you walked into the middle of my kitchen when I'm making a cake, it's a mess in the middle. It just is. Okay. And just because things are rough in the middle does not mean you're doing the wrong thing.
Right.
So I think that the one thing you should promise, more change. There will be more change.
Okay.
There will be problems. It's going to be difficult. So you just set people up with that expectation rather than thinking you're doing the wrong thing in the middle when you may be doing absolutely the right thing.
Right.
Am I making sense?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, I think that promise more change, transparency. You could commit to being as transparent as you possibly can be. Okay. The other thing is, often in times of change, they think you know when you don't. They think you know the answer. They think you have a plan. And it's useful for them to say, guys, I don't know. Share when you don't know. We're in the middle of it. We're trying to figure it out ourselves. And again, that consistent communication is good. The other thing is, it helps if they understand that, hey, this is rough for me too.
Yeah.
And it's what am I trying to say? Sometimes when leaders act, they're very commanding and they want to be in charge and all this other stuff, but they don't show their vulnerability in this time. It doesn't work well. The minute they show, hey, we're trying to figure this out together, it becomes a team effort from my perspective.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a really great point, and something that actually came up on so we do daily staff meetings. I'm used to seeing my people, and that's the best part of my day is when I get to see them. And so at 9 a.m. we start our day every day together and just have a quick video call, and everybody does a round robin on what they're working on that day. But we had a moment last week where I just had to say, you guys, I am struggling personally. I am scared about my personal life. I'm scared about my work life. I'm scared for you guys. I know what we're facing, and I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately, and it makes me tear up now as I think about it. And so I think as a leader, that is the hardest thing to say, is I don't know. And I love that you have given everybody permission to be able to do that, because I think oftentimes put ourselves in this silo of, well, I'm the one in charge. Somebody put me in charge, or I elevated myself to this position, and so I'm supposed to know what to do. And crap, now I don't know what to do. And so having that conversation both ways, I think really opens that door for other people to say, okay, good, because we're really worried too. And being vulnerable together is so vital, I would say, to culture, in addition to just being able to move forward together.
Mm-hmm. And it engenders trust. It engenders trust. It does. So good for you for being vulnerable, being willing to be vulnerable. Because the bottom line is, none of us know what's going to happen. Nobody does.
Nobody does. I mean, we'd like to.
And we can project and we can think we know, but we really don't. None of us do.
Absolutely. Well, and so that kind of leads me to my next question is, as if we end up having to do a layoff or people are let go, what's your recommendation as far as staying in touch with them afterwards? Because we don't know what things are going to look like. And so, I'm afraid of, if we ended up having to lay somebody off and they get a job somewhere else, are they going to feel guilty about that? Am I going to feel guilty that I wasn't able to bring them back on quickly enough? Do I stay in touch with them? Is that a sore subject? From your experience, what does that look like?
Well, it's interesting because there's some leading firms in the world that have created alumni groups.
Oh, wow.
They see them as a great source of wonderful candidates for the future. Mm-hmm. Either they'll come back to the firm or they'll refer others to the firm if they think highly of it, of you. So one of the things that I like to tell people is, whatever you do during this time, the employees that remain will infer how they're going to be treated if it's ever them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's really, really important to be kind, be as supportive as you can, provide as many resources as you can. These are great people. Like I've seen organizations do this very badly, where somebody's a fantastic employee one day and the next day they're out the door with a box in their hand and everybody treats them like you can't trust them, right? A huge mistake. So from my perspective, this is a different animal. We're all in this together. I think that I would keep in touch with people, you bet, because either they may come back or they may refer others.
Right.
And they know who you are. They know what kind of employer you are. They can help sell you with others if you treat them well. So I think you do keep in touch. Okay. And I've seen employees treat their own alumni groups, and you want the conversation to be good about you.
Yeah, you do. And I think that the guilt aspect, I think, is what probably holds a lot of people back, and they don't know necessarily how to approach that, because in this circumstance, they're not necessarily living on bad terms, and nobody wants the outcome that is happening. And so I love the idea of an alumni group, because, we all move on, and I have people at former jobs that I just adore, and I would love to continue to work with if I had that opportunity. So I think that's a really great tip. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is, this day and age, it's all about your network. It is totally about your network. And so I've got a very strong LinkedIn group. I have connected with just about everybody I've worked with over 30 years. Yeah. And I keep those relationships strong. And you just can't make the mistake of cutting people off or treating people badly. It just doesn't work in this world anymore.
Yeah.
Because your reputation will precede you, right?
It does, whether you want it to or not. It is the thing that people talk about behind closed doors and to their friends, and that reputation, it is absolutely out there for others to recognize.
Well, the other thing you brought up, the managers or the leaders, and I get it. I want to give you a few tips about the leadership side of this thing. Is, first of all, I know a lot of leaders, particularly if they have to make a decision and they have to select people that stay and people that go. This is a technique that I've used, and it's worked very, very well for me. Is, if you decide, you go through the strategic planning this session, you discover what your organization is going to look like going forward. You decide what skills you need, what roles you need, And let's say that you are going to be eliminating some positions. I think it's a really good idea to allow people to apply for the positions that they're interested in and compete for them, to have a slot going forward with the business. And yes, some people will be laid off at the end of the day, but you will make some good decisions. Sometimes you can be really surprised about who's going to end up in which role, because there's people with skills you don't know about and skills you don't know about if you got a larger organization. And you can actually end up stronger with better matches in the roles. And then the other thing is, once the decision's made, it's made. I think that managers feel the need to kind of justify their decisions and things like that when they do the termination meeting, and they feel guilty and emotional and all of those things. And bottom line, the decision has been made at that point. And what you need to do is talk about, they're not going to hear another word you say until you tell them what's going to happen to them. Like, what's going to happen to me? That's what they want to know. And so providing whatever tools and resources you can around them. So have a packet of materials, do a bunch of FAQs, if you're going to do outplacement, like if you're going to have a counselor work with them on their career, if you're going to have an EAP available, the COBRA stuff, give them all the information they need, but don't get into a situation where you're trying to justify it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just make a decision and communicate kindly and effectively, and then move on. The other thing I wanted to tell you, if you don't mind, if I can spend a minute on change.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's, I love Dr. Price Pritchett's material on change. He's been doing it for 30 or 40 years. Most of the major companies in the world have used him. And William Bridges is another resource for change theory. But bottom line, when there's a change announced, there's an ending. The old way is gone. Productivity drops like a rock. People get behind closed doors and they start grieving. Okay, that's what happens. That's with ending. The neutral zone in between is not the old and not the new, and we're right there. We're hanging out in this place where we don't know what's going to happen. We know it's over, the old way is over, but we don't know what the new way looks like yet, and that's called the neutral zone. And then you come up the other side to the new beginning where, oh, that's the way it's going to be. Oh, that's the role I'm going to have. Oh, I've got a new job. Oh, things are better, and we're coming up the other side. There's things that leaders can do to help people through each one of those zones. Okay. So first of all, knowing that people are grieving in the ending zone, when you make an announcement that there's going to be a layoff, okay, describe that change in as much detail as you can to the people that are, to everybody. Think through the ramifications and secondary changes. So for example, maybe you've got to downsize your office. Maybe the team has to dissolve. Maybe there's all kinds of secondary things that are going to change in addition to the main change. Somebody losing their job or restructuring. Try to identify who's losing what. So I'm losing a team. I'm losing a work that I loved. I'm losing my office space. I'm losing my freedom, whatever it happens to be. People are losing stuff based on what's happening. They're going to overreact. You got people grieving. It's okay. You need to acknowledge the losses and be sympathetic with people. Compensate if you can. So for example, in this time of change where you don't know what the future is going to look like, let's say you have to lay some people off, you could give your remaining staff training. You could give them something else that helps them stay focused on the job and moving forward. Trying to define what's over and what isn't is really useful. And then when you move into the neutral zone, the thing I'd like to say about that is it's like you're on a trapeze. You let go one bar, you don't have the next bar in your hands yet, you're midair.
Right.
And people have this sense of feeling lost. There's a lot of self-doubt, and everybody's feeling self-doubt, including the leader, and everybody around them is feeling self-doubt, but they don't realize that everybody's feeling the same way. That makes sense? Everybody's feeling the same way. It's useful to use positive metaphors rather than negative metaphors. So a positive metaphor would be like a what do you call it? A caterpillar turning into a butterfly. That's a positive metaphor. A negative metaphor would be going down with the ship. Try to use metaphors.
No, those are good. Thank you. Those are good examples.
So if you can protect people from additional changes, it is very useful as a leader to say, here is the umbrella of changes we're going to be going through. And these are the sub changes that we'll experience along the way, rather than a shoe dropping and a shoe dropping and a shoe dropping and a shoe dropping. Does that make sense? Given the big picture of the change that you're going to be going through, so they have that understanding. what you're doing with the daily meetings on communicating with people, keeping them connected to each other and to you is really wise in this time. That's very smart. Don't leave people alone.
Thank you.
Engaged. And then re-recruiting your best people. If you want people, there's some people that are going to stay, by all means, tell them how valuable they are. Tell them that you really value them being on your team. You want them to stay. You're excited that they're with you, whatever. And then in the new beginning, there's some things that you can do to symbolize that the end was real. It's over. It's not the old way anymore, but we're coming back up the other side. People start to feel better. And what I'm going to do is I'll send you a presentation that if you want to share it with people, we'll give them what you as a leader can do to help people through each one of those stages.
Yeah, that would be great. And we'll add links whenever we post this, so that people can just click into those links and look at all of that and digest it in their own time. So that would be great. Thank you. Something that you touched on that is new to me and I hadn't even thought of, and I love a lot, and I want to dig into just a little bit more. When you talk about looking for the opportunities and how you move your business forward, you mentioned posting, looking at what those jobs are, and then posting them, letting people that you may not realize you even had in your office. And so I'm curious, do those look like brand new jobs? Like maybe you've pushed a couple of different positions together to create a new position, or is it existing positions that you need that position to stay, but it may not necessarily be the person that's currently in the position? Talk me through that just a little bit more.
Okay, so it's interesting because not everybody does it this way, but I always have, and it's been very effective. Okay. So it is. Bottom line, everybody has to reapply for their job.
Okay.
So you decide what the structure is that you need to have going forward, and you give people internally a chance to post themselves for the position, go for the position, right? And in some organizations, people have had to compete internally and externally. So you give the internal person the first opportunity, and then you may even open it up to the outside world, and you're going to pick the best possible candidate for the job. You could choose to do that or not do that. Like if you wanted to just keep it internal, you could. The thing about that is there might be an opportunity with all the people out there on the marketplace that you might find some really key people that are available right now that may be a better fit for where your organization is going in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and
it does.
When you do that, first of all, they had a chance to compete for it. They had a chance to show what they were interested in. They had a chance to compete for it. And if they didn't get the job, I know that's really hard, but they understand the rationale. You know, the whole organization does. That the person that got the job was the best qualified person. And if you had somebody, for example, who's been working on a degree and you didn't realize it, or they used to do a job you didn't know about and they're highly qualified for a position, but that wasn't the one they were in, that kind of talent kind of comes to the top and you're surprised by who you got and what role they might play and the value they might bring.
That's I had never considered doing that. And it's an interesting way, I think, to even see what people are motivated towards doing, because maybe they've been in a position for several years and they like it just fine and are happy to continue to do it. But if this other one became available, who's going to apply for that? And who's really going to step up and step outside their box and comfort zone and the lane you've put them in, essentially, in your organization? And what does that new kind of metamorphosis of your organization look like?
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's really neat. And while it's really difficult to think about like my team and having to lay people off if we end up having to do that, and I hope that's obviously what we're trying to not do. But I do think it's neat to have the idea of how do we transform this together and in a way that helps us just grow to that next level.
Well, the other thing I'd like to tell you is there's two different philosophies. There's the SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You go through a strategic planning session as a leadership team. There's another model called the SOAR model, where it's strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results. And you focus much more about what do we want? Who could we become? How can we capitalize on our strengths? How can we capitalize on our skill? How can we capitalize on our talent to become this thing we want to be? Rather than looking at the past, the threats, the problems, because it limits your creative thinking. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
And
No,
when you're,
I love that. I've never heard of that before, and I absolutely love it. I think it's so exciting to be able to do exactly what you're talking about, of just thinking through the possibilities and your potential.
yes, yes. And then and when I facilitate strategic planning sessions, what I have people do is I say, all right, dream, dream,
Mhm.
dream, dream. 5 years from now, who are you guys and what are you doing and what difference are you making? And
Mhm.
describe this company as something you're really proud of, proud to work for. You've accomplished amazing things. Okay, you describe that in great detail. And
Yeah.
then you look backward 5 years and go, okay, what did we do that got us there?
Mhm.
What do we do today that started us on that path? What are the things we took on that it enabled us to get there? And
Right.
it's amazing how differently you will think than if you're threat minded. Am I making
Yeah.
sense? Rather
Yes.
than opportunity minded.
Mhm. Because I think we do have a tendency to think about our competition a lot, and how are those other people encroaching on our space or our territory or our competencies. And that's not what has ever made us successful as a business. And I just, looking at BBB in our own silo and what we do, we have a lot of different competition from other people's perspectives. And from my perspective, our core value is making business better. And so while we have services that we offer, if the root of it, that's what we're doing, then we're going to continue to move forward. And just looking at the landscape, regardless of 2020, 2015 and 2025, that landscape is going to look really different in how we make business better. And so I love looking at that from the opportunity aspect of life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, speaking as someone who literally has gone through some really bad times with companies,
Yeah.
there's always opportunity. There's always
Mhm.
opportunity. And if you're too focused on the problems and the threats, you'll miss it.
Yeah.
You'll miss it. It's just much more helpful to try to retain a positive frame of mind and go, what could we do? What could
Mhm.
we do?
Yeah.
Because the other thing about the neutral zone is the old way is gone.
Mhm.
The walls are down. Stuff that you've been running your head into for 10 years, the wall is down.
Yeah.
Now's the time to run as fast as you can in that neutral zone rather than everybody's head down, waiting to see what's happening. The right answer is to run like crazy.
Yeah.
It really is in that time.
I couldn't agree with you more. We talked about this morning in our networking coffee of the box that we've all put ourselves in. That box has exploded. It's laying crumbled around you. You don't have to sit in it anymore. So what's the new thing? Because
Yeah.
I think this is a great opportunity to just think so far outside of your what if possibilities and dream big, just like you said.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Thank you, Donna. Well, I'm
Yeah.
curious, looking at Executive Resource Center and Purse Power and those two entities, what are the different things if people wanted to get in touch with you and utilize the services that you provide, what could they reach out to you to help them with in their business right now?
Okay. Okay. So on the Purse Power side, we're trying to send revenue and business to women-owned and women-led companies.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a woman-owned or woman-led company, you can have a free directory listing, and we'd
Great.
love to have you register your business. In addition to that, we're holding Friday calls. We're saying, let's share the journey. I've got a bunch of female business owners all talking to each other, sharing insights and best practices and all of that. So my energy is all about women helping women. We also have a goal of creating a funding stream for better women's shelters in the process, and it's a startup company, but that's Purse Power. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Executive Resource Center. I've got to make a living too, and so what I do is I facilitate strategic planning sessions. So that one that I described, when you're doing a SWOT analysis or SCORE analysis, you're trying to figure out what the structure of your business ought to be going forward. I
Yeah.
can help get your senior team through that discussion. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing I'm offering is also help with a reduction in force. So I've got a checklist you can have for free. It's on the Purse Power site, or it's on my executiveresource.com site. And this is, again, I developed that playbook for consolidating the 250 call centers. And I've got a step-by-step things that you need to be thinking through. And I'm no longer an HR person per se, but one of the things I would suggest you do, if you don't have that skill set, find somebody with that skill set if you're getting ready to do a layoff, and get them involved at the beginning of the process rather than the end, because they can really help you do it right. and make sure that you don't make any mistakes or have any missteps. So please sign up your business, get a free directory listing. Love to have you. Or if you need help on the other side, I'd love to help you.
Great. And how can people reach out and find you? What are some ways to contact you or follow you on social media?
Okay. So the Purse Power site is pursepower.com. And if you go through our contact form, I'll get the message. Or you can go through executiveresource.com. Either way, either website works fine. And my cell number, I guess, if people need it, is 405-255-9289.
Okay, perfect. Any social media channels you want to tell us about?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we've got everything. So I'm on LinkedIn, and everything, just about every channel. And on most of the channels, Purse Power is Purse Power Inc.
Okay.
And then my LinkedIn profile, my personal LinkedIn profile has everything else you need on ERC.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend that people follow you on LinkedIn. You are a great resource in sharing content and information and just adding in your own personal experience. And I follow you on LinkedIn. I have for years, and I love it because I just always get that little tidbit and nugget of things that I can use in my own business to help share with other people. So I would highly recommend LinkedIn.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Likewise, I follow you too.
Well, Donna, thank you so much for your just knowledge and insights and compassion of what everybody is going through right now. I really appreciate it and just enjoyed spending time with you and getting to chat this morning. Any last things that you want to share before we end our recording today?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a delightful experience. One of the things I just wanted to share as an executive coach, I'm a former executive coach, is the stories that you tell yourself about the situation will absolutely determine your future success. Okay. So I can either look at this as, oh my God, it's terrifying. This is awful. Oh my God, what's going to happen? That's one choice. The other one is, you know what? I'm strong. I've been through things before. I've got a good skill set. How could I take advantage of the fact that there's this massive change going on in the environment? So you've got a choice about the story you tell yourself, and it will really impact your success if you will think about what you can do and think about your strengths and what's possible.
I love that because that's the control we have, right? The way we think about things. And right now when we feel out of control or like we are grasping at it, that's absolutely true. I agree with you 100%. So thank you for sharing that. That's such a good tip.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Donna, you have a great afternoon and we'll be in touch soon.
You too. Okay. Take care.